Goal celebrations are now as much a part of football as throw-ins or corners. The only occasions in which we tend not to see a player celebrating a goal is when they've scored against a former club, and even that tends to seem somewhat disingenuous. It hasn't always been this way though. For most of football's history, there were no elaborate celebrations when a player found the back of the net. A simple shake of the hand of the player who assisted the goal, or whoever was closest to you, would suffice before gently jogging off back towards the halfway line. That's all changed, particularly on the biggest of stages, at the World Cup, with Marco Tardelli's impassioned celebration in the final in 1982, and even more famously, Roger Miller's dance by the corner flag at Italia 90. Following Miller's smooth moves, goal celebrations began to take off, and we have seen increasingly complex choreographed routines in the years that have followed. Today, Thierry Henry's famous knee slide celebration is immortalised in statue form outside of the Emirates, Ronaldo's goal celebration became the basis of an iconic advertising campaign, and Gareth Bale even went to the effort of trademarking his heart-shaped celebration. Not all goal celebrations are quite so jovial though, and following a suggestion from subscriber Sterling Archer on Twitter, today I'm going to be taking a look at some of the most controversial goal celebrations of all time. Without further ado then, here is exactly that. Xherdan Shaqiri. You get two controversial goal celebrations for the price of one in 7th place, since Xherdan Shaqiri and Granit Xhaka both performed the same controversial celebration in the same game at the 2018 World Cup. Anyone who watched our Refugee 11 video, which I would highly recommend if you have not, will be well aware that both Xhaka and Shaqiri are ethnic Albanians from Kosovo whose families sought refuge in Switzerland as they fled the conflicts in their homeland. Xhaka's father spent 3.5 years in prison as a dissident in the former state of Yugoslavia, meanwhile Shaqiri's family fled Kosovo shortly after he was born. Both now key men for the Swiss national team, Switzerland were drawn against Serbia in Group E at the 2018 World Cup. Now, for those of you with absolutely no prior knowledge of the region, Kosovo and Serbia do not have good relations, and they haven't for a long time. In fact, Serbia doesn't even recognise Kosovo's independence and claims that Kosovo is still part of Serbia. When Xhaka and Shaqiri scored crucial goals to secure a 2-1 comeback for Switzerland against Serbia, both players celebrated their goals with the eagle gesture, crossing their hands in an attempt to replicate the double-headed eagle on the Albanian flag. The celebrations infuriated many Serbians in the ground and watching on TV, and FIFA decided that it was unsporting behaviour, so they fined both players 10,000 Swiss francs. Both players avoided a ban though, as Switzerland progressed to the knockout stages, where they were beaten 1-0 by Sweden in the round of 16. David Norris. Not to be confused with the David Norris who was convicted of the racially motivated murder of Stephen Lawrence, the David Norris that we're interested in still plays football at non-league level, although his goal celebration does tie in to another murder conviction. A former Hull City loanee who is best known for his lengthy stints with both Ipswich Town and Plymouth Argyle in the Championship, David Norris won Plymouth's Player of the Year award in the 2005-06 season under Tony Pulis. It was following his move to Ipswich in 2008 that Norris courted a great deal of controversy then, while celebrating a goal that he scored against Blackpool. Norris appeared to perform the so-called handcuff celebration, mimicking the appearance of being put in handcuffs, which has been performed a few times in football. However, Norris's celebration appeared to be in support of his former Plymouth teammate Luke McCormick, who had just been jailed for causing death by dangerous driving with excess alcohol in his system. McCormick's Range Rover collided with a Toyota, leading to the death of 9 and 10-year-old brothers Aaron and Ben Peake, for which he would spend only 4 years in prison. The crash occurred after McCormick fell asleep at the wheel whilst driving home from Norris's wedding, and Norris's celebration unsurprisingly upset the dead boys' mothers. Norris was fined £25,000, although he was later made Ipswich's club captain by Roy Keane. Emmanuel Adebayo. As I mentioned in the introduction, it is not uncommon for a player not to celebrate against their former club, typically out of respect for their former employers. Personally, I've always been of the opinion that unless it's actually your hometown club, the club you support, or you spent a seriously long time there, came through the club's academy, etc., then not celebrating a goal for your current employers is a bit odd. However, there are also some players who go pretty far in the opposite direction. Emmanuel Adebayo, most of you will recall, is one such player. The towering Togolese centre-forward joined free-spending Manchester City in the summer of 2009 for £25 million, following 3.5 years at the Emirates with Arsenal. Like many players who joined Man City around that time, Adebayo was accused of being greedy and disloyal, and as such, he took a bit of flack from the Arsenal fans during his first game against his former club. Adebayo scored in that game and responded by running the entire length of the pitch in order to perform a knee slide in front of the Arsenal fans as makeshift missiles rained down on him from the away end at the City of Manchester Stadium. Adebayo wasn't disciplined for the possibly inflammatory celebration, although he did later apologise, and he was handed a 3-match ban for kicking former teammate Robin van Persie in the face during the same game. Robbie Fowler. Despite having celebrated over 250 career goals, there is one goal celebration the Liverpool legend Robbie Fowler is remembered for above all the others. Fowler was part of Liverpool's so-called Spice Boys generation during the mid to late 1990s, a nickname that was actually coined by the Daily Mail following reports that Fowler was dating Spice Girls member Emma Bunton. The nickname carried with it a certain reputation for partying, and Fowler was accused of being a cocaine user, particularly by Everton fans, during the early parts of his career. Fowler exacted some individual revenge in 1999 during the Merseyside derby when he celebrated a goal against the Toffees by simulating snorting cocaine using the white line of the penalty area. Unsurprisingly, the FA weren't overly impressed, and Gerard Houllier launched a rather audacious defence of Fowler, claiming that he was performing a grass-eating celebration that he had learnt from teammate Rigobert Song. No one was convinced, and even Fowler admitted that the celebration was a response to what he called false accusations of drug abuse. The centre-forward was handed what was at the time a record ban in the Premier League, but did he regret it? Well, in his own words, Fowler said, "No chance. I used to get absolutely mullered by Everton fans, so I was always going to do it. I knew what I was doing, I didn't care. It was a chance to wind them up after all the abuse they'd given me." Oh well, good to clear that one up then. Paul Gascoigne. Part of a rare breed of player to have performed two of the most infamous goal celebrations of all time, it is the one Paul Gascoigne performed at Rangers that earned him a spot in this 7, but I'll mention both of them. A phenomenally talented footballer, but also a deeply flawed human being, Paul Gascoigne brought joy to millions of football fans on the pitch, but has had many personal battles outside of the game. A heavy drinker, Gazza and several of his teammates had been photographed on a night out in Hong Kong prior to Euro 96, for which they were heavily criticised in the English press. Gascoigne and others were pictured sitting in a so-called dentist chair, having drinks poured directly into their mouths. It was seen as a brazen lack of professionalism ahead of England hosting a major tournament for the first time since 1966. In only England's second game of the finals at Wembley Stadium though, Gascoigne scored a stunning goal against Scotland, and he celebrates by replicating the dentist chair, lying on the ground, as teammates sprayed Lucozade into his mouth. That was all fairly harmless, classic Gazza fun, which took a slight swipe at the English press, but was generally well received. That wasn't necessarily the case 80 months later, when Gazza celebrated a goal against Celtic by miming playing a flute. Gascoigne had little understanding of the connotations of the celebration, which was seen as a symbol of loyalist supremacy, having been encouraged to do it by his teammates. The backlash was severe. He received a £25,000 fine and death threats from the IRA. Unsurprisingly, we never saw the flute celebration again. Nicolas Anelka. Nicolas Anelka is a man who has had many different clubs over the years, but none more disastrous than his brief stint at West Bromwich Albion. Anelka arrived on big money, returning to the Premier League following a brief spell in China, only a few years on from having won the Premier League Golden Boot at Stamford Bridge. Not only did Anelka only score 2 goals in 12 games for West Brom though, following one of those goals, he performed a celebration so controversial it led to West Brom's chief sponsor Zoopla ending their deal with the club, and it saw Anelka's contract terminated at the Hawthorns. The celebration in question came just after Christmas 2013 against West Ham United, in which Anelka bagged a brace, his only 2 goals for the Baggies. Following his first goal, Anelka celebrated by performing the quenelle gesture that was largely unfamiliar to a UK audience. It later transpired that the quenelle had been popularised in France by controversial comic and Anelka's friend Dieudonné, and that it was widely believed to be an anti-Semitic gesture. As well as the financial hit suffered by West Brom, Anelka was fined £80,000 by the FA and ordered to attend an educational course, but he would never play for the club or in the division ever again. The FA accepted that Anelka was not himself anti-Semitic, but that the gesture was, and the 41-year-old Frenchman is now a youth team coach at Lille. Giorgos Katidis. If you want to ruin a promising football career, performing the Sieg Heil salute after scoring a goal isn't a bad way to go about it. Just ask Giorgos Katidis, who was a star in Greece's youth ranks and made his debut for Superliga side Aris when he was only 17. At 19, he signed for one of Greece's traditional Big Three, AEK Athens, as well as becoming one of the youngest members of Greece's under-21 squad. During his first season though, Katidis caused quite the stir when he celebrated his winning goal against Veria like this. Now, I think one ought to approach accusations of Nazi salutes with some caution, especially in still images like that, since it can be very easy to innocently be caught in an unfortunate situation with one's arm outstretched. However, if you watch the full clip of Katidis' celebration, it's pretty clear that he's doing a Nazi salute, regardless of his intentions. The young forward claimed that he was dedicating a goal to someone in the stands, but come on Georgios, who points to someone in the stands like that? The most bizarre thing is that it does appear to be true that Katidis has no attachment to far-right politics or neo-Nazi ideology. He is, or at least was, just an idiot. His future at AEK Athens was immediately brought to an end, given that the club and their ultras are renowned for taking left-wing and anti-racism stances, and there was insult added to injury since Katidis performed the salute on the 70-year anniversary of Greek Jews first being transported to concentration camps by the Nazis. Katidis' once promising career has never recovered, and the 27-year-old has now gone more than 12 months without a club, having also been banned from any involvement with the national team for life after the incident. Paolo Di Canio also famously performed a Nazi salute whilst playing for Lazio, a club that does have more of a troubled relationship with fascism, and it didn't have quite such a damning impact on him, albeit it occurred much later on in his career. I left that one out because one Nazi salute seems like enough for any video. So that's all from me for today, but thank you all for tuning in. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for HITC Sevens. Oh, and as ever, you can also follow me on Twitter or Instagram, where the username is just @HITC Sevens on both platforms.